and welcome to the Earthborne Games Podcast. I'm your host, Anders Carlson. It's been a month. December 11th was the last time you heard from us. Or that's the last time we've recorded it anyway. It's good to be back. It feels like it's been forever. How do you guys feel?
Feels like a long time.
Yeah.
With the holiday break and everything, too. It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to, let's introduce Andrew Fisher first. Hi.
Hello. Does my mic sound normal?
Your mic sounds great. I want you guys to tell me, I've noticed that his mic kind of comes through weird, and we tried a new setting, and I think it sounds booming.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I do wish my mic... I wish bursting. I wish my mic had more settings, because, like, I would love to be able to make my voice sound deeper. You know, it's one of those things where, like, when you listen to your own voice, or, like, when you listen to recordings of your own voice, it always sounds higher and nasalier than you think.
Right. It does.
And so part of me wants to, like, edit my mic down to, like, what I think my voice sounds like.
do an impression of what your voice sounds like to you.
I can't do that.
You can, but just embarrassed to, because it's going to be so wildly different than what we hear.
Hey guys.
To me, mine sounds like like way blander, more like kind of dopey or something.
That's pretty accurate.
No, I'm kidding.
It sounds much more rich and intelligent in real life.
Yes, in my mind. In my mind, that's what it sounds like.
But yeah, we'll see if this maybe this what is it, the dark tone will that's the setting I'm using right now. Maybe that one will make it a little bit more bassy. We'll see.
Evil Fisher. What if he starts saying crazy stuff later in the show?
Dark tone.
Dark demonic messages to our listeners. We're also joined by Evan Simonette.
Hey, it's been a while for me too, because I missed the last one, right? It's been over a month for me.
Yeah, it's like 2 months, because there's a big break. I'm sorry, listeners. I know that there are a lot of you who are eager to listen and watch this podcast. So sorry for the big wait. It's been the holidays, right? But yeah, good to see you, Evan. You have the second best audio quality, I think, of the four of us.
I have the same. Andrew Navarro ordered this mic for me. I didn't.
Yeah, I
had no part in it.
I think Navarro has the top vocal quality. And I think his natural tone of voice contributes to that.
Yeah.
And then you got second.
I think I'm tone of voice.
But the mic helps.
Untrue.
Yeah.
I should have just ordered the same mic you guys got, because it's cheaper than this one too.
It's really cheap.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Disappointed with this one.
I do wish it was on an arm. I wish I had an arm so I don't have to hold it. But
yeah.
Well, what's holding it right now? Is that not your arm?
That's true. I wish I had another arm.
Third
Andrew
arm.
just moved his left
Only
arm.
I had arms.
Yeah. We found out that it's someone else holding the mic this whole time.
Yes. That's your wife's hand.
Thank you.
So then we got Andrew Navarro here. I was saying before the show, I really freaking wish that I was where you are. It's cold and snowy here in Minnesota.
Oh, is it snowing finally?
Finally snowy.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like a little bit. We got like a quarter inch.
Yeah, it's pretty nice here. It's been very cloudy and rainy. And sun's been breaking through here and there. We were just out of town for the weekend. We went to the coast on the Pacific side. This time we were invited by our local friends. It was Andres and Estefania. It was Andres' birthday, and it was like their first vacation in like 5 years. So we drove out to the coast and went on to this like tiny island off of the coast. Where everybody there like was asking us like how, like as Americans, like how did you hear about this place? it's like a Costa Rican family vacation area. So
were they mad about it?
No, God, I don't know if the people here get mad about anything.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
They're the most welcoming people, and it was a really awesome time. But man, I tell you, the weather there was really nice. It was really nice. It was much drier. It was clear blue skies every day. We were like on this, like kind of, I want to say like rustic, like living area. Like these small little cabins up this hill that if you walked up these winding back and forth stairs up to the top, there was like a restaurant, open air restaurant bar, and a tiny little pool, and then the back of it kind of just opened up into this field where you could just walk out, check it out. But it just overlooked the ocean, and like effectively the side of the island we were on looked out onto the mainland, over the ocean, so like a little bay effectively. So it's just, and there's, so you're looking 360, is like there's mountains everywhere and then just expanse of ocean in between. Perfect.
That's cool.
Perfect day.
Wow.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. Like every day, every wake up in the morning and be like, man, this is something.
Living the dream.
Yeah, it was really great. It was really great. That was cool. Like 2 days. That was really fun. Went fishing. Elder Murchak Grawl style, so it's just like a spool. It was just a spool.
Cool.
Oh.
Yeah,
no,
you take
no rod?
No rod, yeah.
Wow.
You just stick a half of a shrimp, a live shrimp, so you have to, instead of worms in a bucket, they just have a bunch of shrimp. And you have to, like, they showed the technique for like popping off their heads. I couldn't quite do that. It just, I don't know. There'd be, their little arms still moving after you pull their head off. But yeah, so you put half of the shrimp on there, and then you just take the sinker and the bait and then just chuck it into the ocean, and then it sinks, and then you'll catch something or not. And that was super fun. I haven't been fishing in a long time. I've never been fishing on the ocean.
So when you catch it, is there a handle on this reel?
No, it's just a spool.
So do you just yank it
like a
spool
with your
yarn?
Hand? Yeah. No, with
kind of
a spool of fishing line.
Just kind of pull it like this, like hand over hand.
Yep, that's it.
I would just try to do this. I wouldn't want to touch the fishing line.
Yeah, I didn't catch anything worthwhile. I caught like 3 catfish, which is just throwback. But catfish make weird sounds, which I didn't know when you pull them out.
Wow.
Like what?
Yeah,
I would do an impersonation of it. Really?
Yeah. As you're like digging in there for the hook, because they just hoover in everything.
Yeah, they just go woomph. Yeah.
I wonder how many less people would fish if like walleyes and sunfish like made crazy noises.
or it's just when they came up, they're like, "Hey man, what are you doing?
Hey, put me back."
That's right. I had one fish on the line that was pretty big. It was like moving around, and I had it, but then it got away. Of course.
Do you wear gloves or anything so that you don't get line burn?
No, I don't. I think if there was anything that was like big enough where it would actually like dig into your hand, you just let that thing go, man.
Just cut the line.
Yeah, I would say so. Or it would just take the spool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Take off.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was a really good time. Really good time. But I was going to just mentioning it because this morning when I got up and it was cloudy and rainy, and I was like, man, wish it was sunnier. Then I just caught myself. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, anywhere you are in the world, you can complain about the weather.
Yeah,
if you experience it long enough. So
goes to show.
Just want a live feed of what's outside our windows right now. That will make you grateful.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's very apparent this winter because I hear people complaining that there's not enough snow.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The very last year, you were complaining there's too much snow. Can't be happy here.
Minnesotans complain about
any weather.
Any weather phenomenon.
Maybe it's just humans. Maybe
I'll take the snow.
Costa Ricans,
I'd much rather have the snow than the stick season out there.
I want the snow for them.
Costa Ricans still also complain about the weather. Like like we were just talking, like the weather is just one of those subjects where it's like, don't know what to talk about.
We can all relate.
That's universe. That's universal. So
it is.
Guy the other day was like, man, it's been raining a lot. I'm like, has it?
I mean,
let's get into it.
Anecdotally, watching, being on video calls with you, yes.
Yeah. Well, no, it's been like super rainy this past month. It's been like, dusk till dawn, and then dawn to dusk, just rain. So like having the sun come out at all has been pretty rare last few weeks.
Well, it's great to see you guys. It's been so long, as I said, and apparently there's been some really good year-end lists and reviews pouring in for the game, which I wasn't aware of because I've been kind of on a social media trying to stay away. So what's up?
Oh, good. Is that like a New Year's resolution?
No, I don't really do those, but I always have that resolution. Actually, it's a constant battle.
It's a life resolution.
Yeah. So I have periods where I'm able to keep away, and then I'll feel the pull, and then I'm just watching TikTok for 3 hours a night again.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what's up? Tell me. I'm very curious. What kind of good news did we get?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Fisher. I've been talking.
Well, we've gotten a bunch of good year-end coverage. A bunch of different people's kind of top 10 lists for 2023 we've ended up on, and it's just been it's very exciting and rewarding to see. We were like number 6 on One Stop Co-op Shop's list. Man vs. Meeple, we were number 3. We were number 1. Oh crap! Now I'm brain farting.
Drive-through games.
Drive-through games. We were number 1.
Wow.
His number 1 game of the year.
Cool.
Rolling Solo, we got voted second most thematic game from the community poll on Rolling Solo.
We got a badge for that too. He sent us a badge.
They sent over a badge graphic.
Yeah, it says second most, which I thought was hilarious.
What does it mean, most thematic?
I think it's just like it's people's favorite thematic games of the year, and so games with a lot of story and narrative and stuff.
What was number 1?
Isofarian Guard was number 1.
Right.
Yeah, which looks pretty cool. I've never played that game, but it looks neat. It's got a very elaborate production. Lots of cards. Isofarian. ISO. It looks neat.
And on let's see, on Polygon, Polygon does an article at the end of each year where different creators kind of talk about a game that really excited them that year. And Cole Worley, the designer of Root, among many others, many other very popular games, talked about Rangers with his segments
really cool.
on that Polygon article, which was
nice.
Which was very nice of him, and
I like Polygon.
Had a lot of kind words to say, so that was really cool to see.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's been super awesome. Yeah, and we got this really great spotlight by a channel I think called Totally Tabled, I think is the name of it.
Yeah.
It's like a 10-11 minute piece on his first impressions of the game, and it was awesome. It had this it was really well produced and had an almost like NPR, old school like NPR-ish kind of vibe to it. I thought with the narration. And just the way he talked about the game, I was like, "That yes, exactly." So that's been awesome. So yeah, it's like I think people like that looking at our game, reviewing it, and then taking the time to share it is incredibly helpful, because that really shows like the audience that we're looking for, the type of player we're looking for. And to see it land in the hands of the right player, and then that player share it and their enthusiasm for it, that's awesome, because it helps really set the right expectations. I think when you're coming in as someone who doesn't know anything about the game, like, this reviewer liked it. This is what they said they liked about it, and I think that one is like a really good example of, like, yeah, if you're intrigued at all by the things this gentleman is saying, then you'll like the game.
That's awesome. Everybody go check out those websites, or I don't know what you'd call it.
We'll link to them on our Gamefound page. We've got a few that we really like. We'll make sure that one will probably be up there for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Great news. Well, we're back. We've got some questions. You guys are always pulling through with questions. We never have a shortage of questions. So that's like,
yeah, we one piece of warning is we've gotten to, especially with like a month between episodes, is in past episodes we're usually able to get to most of the questions that come in, but right now with the volume we have, we do have to be slightly selective. So I'm sorry if we don't get to your question this episode
for the first time ever. We might get
we've done it once before, I think.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's due to thematic reasons, right? Like what we want to kind of stay on topic about, in a way. It's not quality.
Nothing to do with quality, obviously.
No.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's, like we might want to focus on topics like our upcoming Gamefound and stuff, or, we might have talked about something like, a year ago or something.
Right.
Some of the things we have answered before, but it's understandable. There's a couple hours of podcast content to get through, so.
And you've what do you call it when you make the text not dark? What would you call that? De-highlighting? Unhighlighting? Low lighting? So some of the questions have been low lighted.
Dimming.
I'll be sure to say who they were from as we get past them. So you can know.
You've been rebuked.
No, we rejected you.
And our next question comes from
no.
Our next rejection.
I like last time. We'll try to get to them all eventually.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But first, before we get to those, let's do some work stories. And our first guest is Andrew Fisher.
Thanks for having me, Anders.
Good to see you again.
Well, obviously there was the holidays in the middle there, but we have some exciting stuff. So one thing that some of you are probably aware of, but probably not everybody, is we have a new resource that is becoming available, which is, we've talked about it a bit before on the podcast, but we wanted to do an online rules reference for people to be able to access. And so now live on the Living Valley, which is the site you can get to via our website that contains the full interactive campaign guide for the game. We also have an interactive rules glossary. So this has the complete rules of the game formatted for kind of easy lookup. There's a search function. It's organized by topic alphabetically. There's a search function. We have a lot of extra clarifications. All the errata and FAQ is integrated, and that's available right now. We have not publicly posted about this yet, because so far the only place I've talked about it is on our kind of rules discussion page on the Discord. Right, I kind of released it to just those folks, got some feedback from them that we're going to be kind of integrating here ahead of this month, ahead of our Gamefound campaign. But we kind of want to kind of slowly give it to more and more people, collect some more feedback. So to all of you, that resource is available. We will be kind of doing a full announcement on social media and everything at a certain point. But if you do have any feedback as you kind of start using it, feel free to head over to the Discord, and there's a thread in the rules discussion section that you can kind of give feedback on the glossary. And this is a living document. So as you give feedback, that'll give us tools and fuel to further revise the rules and kind of get this document being the most useful tool possible. So go check it out. I'm very excited. Like, it's taken us a bit of time to get all these different resources up. Web development isn't our forte, but having kind of these tools in addition to our printed rulebook and stuff has been, we're really excited about it. And I think it makes this game even more accessible. So yeah. That's cool. That's probably the highlight of my work stories. Do you have anything to add about the glossary, Andrew?
No, I think, well, maybe, because I've been watching all the reviews and stuff, and there are some people who are like, have some issues with the rule book, and that maybe doesn't like explain enough stuff, or whatever. Though I will say that clearly the rulebook is good enough to get you playing the game and for people to play and enjoy the game. So clearly the rulebook, I think, is working. Though obviously it doesn't work for everybody, which is something that we've known from the beginning. It just from our experience, knowing that some people learn other ways, that some people learn differently from each other. So like some people, the rulebook is fine, perfect the way it is. Other people feel like they need, more exacting information, and that is really what the rules glossary is supposed to do. It's very much like, if you're familiar with FFG products, the split between like a learn to play guide and a rules reference. We didn't do a full learn to play, which is something that Fisher and I have talked about a lot on this podcast. Our reasons for trying to merge those two things together so you could have just like a one rulebook experience. but it's always been our plan to make this glossary available. So hopefully, it speaks to the people who want that more, like, very, very detailed, no stone left unturned style of rules. And like Fisher said, this is a living document, so we want this to appeal to you people out there who I'm talking to, and you know who you are. So if you read it and you're like, this still isn't doing it for me, it really needs X, Y, or Z, like, please let us know what X, Y, or Z is, because we're very, very close to the game. Obviously, we've made the game, so when it comes to teaching the game, I think we're pretty good at it, but you need to have us there to do it for you. So we're trying to let these words do it in our stead. And if it's not doing it for you, we need to know. So if you have any thoughts, please share them on our Discord, as Fisher mentioned. That would really, really help us out a lot and help get the game into more people's hands. Because if you care enough about the game, you enjoy the game enough to send us feedback, then you probably care about more people experiencing it, and the more people we can get it in their hands of, the better.
Yeah, this is really great. I'm looking at it right now. The rules glossary makes me excited to play again, so I can use it.
So you can look up some rules. Let's do it.
It would have been so nice.
Favorite part: looking up rules.
I weirdly kind of enjoy that. Like, I don't know what this is. Let's find the word. Okay, bam, got it.
Yeah. I think my favorite part is kind of the search tool. In the upper right hand, there's a little search bar, and you can like type in any term, and it'll quickly populate results anywhere that term shows up.
Nice.
For this, we use a similar. We use this platform called Docusaurus that used by a couple rules resources for like Necromunda and Mordheim and stuff, and I've used them for those games, and like just the ability to have that search bar open and just punch in a term and like immediately be able to jump to the different articles that mention it makes navigating so much faster.
Better than a physical book.
Yeah, ideally.
In a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it scales to mobile just fine, so you can bring it up on your phone as well. That was one other thing. It's like fully adaptive, so we don't need an app or anything. You can still just use the website. That's
sweet. I was just going to ask. All right, cool.
But yeah, so we got that up, and I'm going to be making some revisions to it ahead of the Gamefound, so definitely let us know what feedback you have. Then we've just been looking at expansion stuff, getting it all kind of polished up and ready, not just for our partners to finish their translations, but also getting stuff ready for the Gamefound, getting the different preview cards, the cards we're going to preview, kind of looking nice, and so that Corey and Andrew can kind of make the whole crawl and all of the card fans and everything. So there's just been kind of a lot of this finalization work and stuff happening in addition to that rules glossary. But yeah, that's about it for me.
Cool. How about you, Evan? You're up. You're the next guest.
I've been working on getting visual materials ready for the Gamefound page and stuff, and I've pretty much wrapped up the immediately necessary things, some of which have already been featured on our launch page, but other stuff is yet to be seen. And other than that, I'm just closing in on more art, and as usual, I'm under 20 pieces left, and I just realized something this morning. I'm kind of out of Joe sketches. Like now it's just kind of like now
it's all on you, buddy.
Yeah, so there's exactly. There's his sketches always make things so easy, but now I'm kind of like flying without instruments or something, and I like, I gotta be more creative now, and throw sketches at Andrew to get feedback on before I can really jump into final art, which takes a little more time, but it's also more enjoyable to have more of a creative hand in it and less automated, I guess. So that's exciting, and not to give too much away, but I also had the opportunity to explore reducing even more Ranger role art down into little mini ranger art too. So that's been kind of fun. If people can think of the Ranger Doubler box, those little rangers that appear on that and on the sides of the core box, I've got to make some more of those, so that's pretty cool.
All of them to this point,
all
right?
of them.
They're all of them. Yeah.
Every role now has a little Final Fantasy character.
Yeah. All 15.
Yep.
They look awesome. They look really awesome.
And I was thinking about, as a work story, talking about PAX, because I was out for the previous podcast, but I'll just keep it short. I don't know if you guys talked about it or not, but I was really nervous about giving demos of the game, but it turned out just fine. It's like when you get nervous about giving a speech and then when you actually do it, it goes great. And by the end of it, I felt really competent with the game, teaching it and the rules and everything. But at the very end of it on Sunday, like an hour before the convention hall closed, Andrew, you threw me a curveball by asking me to give Jeremy Zorn a demo. And I was like, why me?
Who's that?
He works at Fantasy Flight Games, and he was at PAX because he worked on a new Fantasy Flight release, Star Wars Unlimited, which is a new card game that they're doing. So, anyways, that was an experience because he's very thoughtful and intentional with his card plays, and I learned that he really needed to know a lot before he makes decisions. And I was like, do I keep talking? Does he want me to shut up?
He might be the best card game player I know, and I know some really good ones. Sorry, Nate. Sorry, Lucas. Jeremy is really good.
But it was funny too because usually we would have like stacked hands to help provide a the most positive experience. Introducing the different types of cards to a demo that's usually in a narrow a narrow amount of time. But I didn't have the chance to really get those hands ready for it, so I just kind of shuffled the deck and dealt out the cards for his hand and hope for the best. And I don't know if he enjoyed the game and he was looking forward to playing more. So, but
nice.
It was just a funny moment at the very end.
Well, I think, to your comment about Jeremy being very thoughtful, most people, when you teach them a game or give them a demo, there's a lot of like that back and forth of if you teach too much of the game at once, you watch their eyes glaze over and they're not absorbing anything else. Jeremy, you could basically just tell him how the whole game works, and then he'll just start playing it, right?
Yeah,
so like, if somebody doesn't need a stacked hand at the start of the game, it's Jeremy. He'll do fine.
I kept thinking, like, I need an adult. Someone, Fisher, get over here. But it was fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, you did great with demos, Evan. Like,
oh, thanks.
You were so nervous before we went into the show.
I know.
You did not need to be.
Well, it was my first convention too, so I'm like, I didn't know what kind of people I'd expect, and everyone was lovely. Everyone was great, so it was awesome.
Awesome. Sorry that I wasn't responding during that segment, Evan.
That's okay.
I'm getting texts from my real job. I just need to make a quick phone call, and we'll pass it over to Andrew. Andrew, work stories. I'll be back.
Right.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Well, I've been working on over the break. I did some work, mostly doing like reprint change stuff, looking over all of the the typos that we've fixed and the clarifications that we're making, and then implementing those into the campaign guide, and just going through everything on our list that Fisher's already implemented, and then just double checking that it was done. And then reviewing it at the same time. So it's like a pretty big list of stuff. People found a lot of things. So I did that, and also updated the Gamefound page. So Gamefound is Gamefound for me for the next several weeks. So
and then a few weeks after that.
That's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so like maybe the next 5-ish weeks. It'll be all Gamefound. And then that for quite some time until the pledge manager closes. But I updated the preview page and put some mock-up images of Legacy of the Ancestors up there. Some images of Stewards of the Valley. So there's some preview cards there and a fan that you can go and check out and speculate on. I was curious to know if anyone got notified when the page got updated. Just by default, like if you're a follower of the campaign, I was wondering if like you'd get like a little ping or something where it says Earthborne Games updated their preview page. But that doesn't happen. Like I think you have to send actual updates. So I was curious just to see how long it would take for people to find out about it, and it took a while. Devi, of course, noticed right away. But
Devi is one of the most digitally vigilant people I have ever met. I am constantly impressed by his ability to just stay plugged in everywhere.
I know. He's like, he's like the man in the chair. So it took maybe, I don't know, 3-4 days for the Discord to notice, and then it was like, oh my god, stuff's happening. And that was pretty cool to watch. Sorry, if you haven't checked out,
can you start again? This actually sounds pretty interesting.
So if you haven't checked out the Gamefound page recently, go check it out. I think it's about as updated as it's going to get, the preview page, until we launch. Probably do a update on it, letting people know like, hey, this is the launch date. It is happening in a week or so once we get everything approved. But we do have more things to show, so stay tuned. We'll have all the add-ons detailed and everything, plus another card game, plus another card product that pretty excited about, that I was going to put in the preview but then didn't because we didn't have a preview image yet, like a render of it. If we do get a render of that in the next few days, I may throw that on there too. So go back and check it out if you haven't. If by the time this posts, it'll be up if it's going to be up. But then otherwise, just hang on till the Gamefound launches on January 23rd. So about a week.
Mark
and
your
a
calendars.
Yeah, so that'd be, let's see, when are we posting this thing? So we're posting this on the 12th. So 11 days from the posting of this podcast.
Wow, cool.
And then the campaign will run for 3 weeks, like the previous one, which takes us to the end of the day on February 13th. So right before Valentine's Day. What better way to say I love you than with a copy of Earthborne Rangers for your sweetheart?
The expansion, right?
Well, it's all going to be there.
I see.
The core game's really leading the way. Like we talked about that a lot over the last year. Like what should be the lead? And I think we went back and forth between, should we lead with Legacy of the Ancestors? Should we lead with the core game? And just based on the number of people to whom Earthborne Rangers is totally new and they'd never heard of it before, leading with the second printing of the core game is clearly the way to go. Cool. And the people who are in the know will just be like, and also the expansions are there.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, so that's exciting. Yeah, I feel like I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to output a ton of energy. Be on and be on for a month.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a lot more practice this time, though.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
But there's also a lot of people following this campaign. So
it's been crazy.
I'm a little nervous.
We're almost at 12,000 followers.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's awesome.
Is that more than what followed the Kickstarter? Or...
Yeah, more than double what was following Kickstarter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why is
easily.
that? Why is that, do you think?
Well, because all that press that we've been getting, we're just people are starting to hear more about what we're doing, and we've been on the Board Game Geek hotness for about feels like a month at this point. We haven't left. Since we've been hanging tight in the 20s these days, these last week or so.
Since you first were on there?
No, we fell off. We were on in August, and that's when we hit number 1. And then that was like during the German release. Probably driven by all those rules questions that the Germans had. And then we kind of fell off, but then we came back on after PAX. And we've been on ever since. So
that's cool.
Yeah, we got up to like 3, I think, was the highest we've gotten this time around.
Dang.
But we haven't left. This is the longest we've been on for like, we're in the 20s right now, but
that's great.
That's awesome. Yeah,
that is cool.
Yep. Steadily climbing the charts. We're like up to number 23 on the customizable list, which is pretty sweet.
Things are happening.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Exciting.
Like we're only I think like 7 spots away from Magic the Gathering.
Whoa,
which is pretty awesome.
Coming for you, Magic.
That's right, we're coming for you. And on the overall list, we left Bananagrams in the dust. We were
really.
We were tied with Bananagrams a couple weeks ago, but
You made that joke, and I never really thought about it. Bananagrams is on the customizable games list.
No, that's the main game list.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
The customizable list, like we hung out at the same spot for a long time. That one's a little bit tougher to crack, like for like consistent movement. We've had like moments where we've just kind of like leapt forward when we reach whatever the calculation says it is to allow us to move up the list. But there's a lot more movement on the overall list where there's like a bajillion games, like some 15,000 pages or 1,500. Maybe I'm over exaggerating. Maybe it's 1,500 pages of games, which I think equates like 15 to 15,000, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So like we're in the 1700s or something, 1800s.
So does that mean you're
games all time?
You're more highly rated than Bananagrams?
Or... Oh yeah. We are more highly rated than Bananagrams.
I hate Bananagrams.
But we have fewer votes than Bananagrams. Yeah, I didn't like Bananagrams either. I wanted to like it. Scrabble's my favorite word game.
Yeah, it's a good one.
There are 25,658 board games on Board Game Geek.
Wow,
that's a lot.
Guess what the worst rated one is?
Is it a known
yes. Well,
title?
Right now it's some random thing that only has 35 votes, but there's a game that consistently sits at the very bottom.
This is beyond
Checkers.
Hobby board games. This is like every board game.
Yeah, any game. Andrew's close.
I'm gonna say sorry.
All right, Andrew, what's your vote?
I'm gonna say Candyland.
So you're close. Candyland is third from the bottom. The bottom is Tic-Tac-Toe.
Well, there's only like 16 ways to win that game. So
yeah, was rock paper scissors on that list? Does that not count because you're using your hands?
There are
board
people
game?
who love rock paper scissors though, so I bet that one's higher.
Yeah, I was gonna say rock paper scissors is great.
But like Connor said, it's not a board game. There's there's no board.
Yeah.
Rock paper scissors sits at 25,111.
Oh, I guess it counts.
With a rating of 4.0, which that's a shame. That's a travesty, people.
Yeah.
Rock paper scissors deserves better than a 4.0.
Yeah, it does.
Would it be like number 1 of games with no components? 2-player games.
Yeah. Is that...
I don't know. There's quite a few games you can play with no components, right? You can even play like Mafia without components theoretically.
Yeah, totally. You can role play without components.
Yeah, that's true.
Just playing pretend.
Is that on there?
Yeah.
Playing pretend.
Yeah.
Hide and
Number
seek
1 with a bullet.
Is hide and seek on there?
I'm not sure.
I doubt it.
It's number
Welcome
1
to our we Google Board Game Geek. Okay, there's a bunch of like board games named hide and seek, but no, I don't think hide and seek the concept is on here.
Yeah.
But anyway, those are our work stories, everybody.
I want to keep going. What else? 1, 2, 3, shoot. What is that one? You put out one finger
that's
or
rock,
two.
paper, scissors.
That's rock, paper, scissors.
No, there's one where you put
Roshambo.
out like a number of fingers out. 1, 2, or 3. You
And then
one
how
of
do
you
you
is
win?
odd. One of you is odd, and one is even, and then you both shoot out a random number, and then the total of it is either odd or even, and then the person who is even wins. If it's even. You never did that?
No. I always just played rock, paper, scissors.
I actually don't think I ever did that, but I saw it in movies and stuff, and I wanted to know what that was.
My kids play a game called Sticks, where they have like a number of they have their hands, and then they just like move. You move like numbers of fingers showing from hand to hand.
Yeah, I saw my nieces and nephews playing that game, and I was enthralled. I was like, wow, what is this?
It was pretty fun. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I always need the rules explained to me, or else I'd explain them right now. But every time I play, it's pretty good. Like, I'm a kid and I'm bored game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's like a rainy day cabin game or something.
Mm-hmm.
I work at a high school, and I was recently taught this game that I've seen kids play. They call it shadow boxing, but they basically one kid goes like slashes up left or right, and the other kid has to like match the movement with his head. And you're kind of like, it's kind of a weird mind trick. Like you naturally kind of want to do what they're doing. So if you like follow their movement 2 times, the 3rd time will be the kill. So you have to like do it.
Oh, I see. You have to break free.
You have to break free. You have to like dodge.
Interesting.
Yeah,
fun.
It is fun. It is fun. But these kids are just like rapid fire, and I'm like have to sit and think like, wait, did I win that? But it looked.
Your old man brain's like, I'm not keeping up here.
No, it's actually unbelievable. Shadow boxing. All right, good talk there. Let's move on to our question for Darren. Did we come up with one?
Well,
okay.
We don't have. I don't think we. Do you have one you want to ask, Fisher?
Sure. I have one I can throw out.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say we loved reading everyone's answers to our question for Darren.
Yeah, it was so cool. I mean, I had a thought.
It feels like so long ago now.
I had a thought where I was like, man, I should just do a podcast episode since we weren't recording, just by myself, where I'm just reading everyone's responses.
Yeah,
they were so good. Like, so people went into our Discord and the podcast chat, and they wrote out like little like mini essays about what brought them to the podcast or to the game. Or the company or the Kickstarter or whatever. And it was awesome. Like, just so thoughtful. And that you guys would take the time to share that in such a thoughtful way, like, means a ton. So thank you for doing that. I read them all.
Yes, it's a conversation we're having here. And I think it should be said then that our question for Darren is kind of just a euphemism for question to you all. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So you have one this year, this year, I guess. I could make that joke. Fisher?
I think I could throw one out there, which is like, so, we've heard a bit about, everybody talked about what brought them to the game and everything, but I'm curious to hear about people's experiences with the game. Now, we do hear a lot of this, right? But like, I often get people's experience through the mechanical side, right? Like a lot of the rules questions and stuff. But and some people have wrote little like campaign reports in the campaign thread and everything. So there's been some of this material already, but I'd be curious to tell us about your character. Tell us about your ranger that you're playing. Share a little bit about the story you've told for them, like some of the things you've brought to the character, and just your experiences with the game. Now, spoiler tag anything that happens basically after day 3 of the campaign. But feel free to, stuff about your deck, backstory you've come up with your character. I don't think you need to spoiler tag that. Just make sure to spoiler tag anything that would happen to your character that is relevant to the plot of the game past day 3. But
that sounds
I'd
awesome.
love to hear a little bit more about people's characters.
There's a little bit of that if you go into the campaign discussion on our Discord. There's some like kind of like live journaling happening there, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, man, I would love that. I would love to read that. That sounds like something that we should read on the podcast.
Yeah.
Great question, Fisher. All right, you're all welcome to answer that. And so our first question comes from Darren. Darren says, the Gamefound preview mentions special reward cards tied to each background earned by completing specific objectives. Can you share what kind of objectives to expect and what the design philosophy is behind creating these as opposed to things like the achievements on the website?
Yeah, that is a good question. You're right. So there are, I guess, how much do we want to share about this, Andrew?
Well, this has made me think like, man, we should have I wish Davi was here. He could answer this right now. But I think
we hopefully
let's just answer. We'll go
Davi
into more detail with Davi.
Yeah, I'll give you some high level answers here. Davi will be able to share a lot more detail. But there are these personal objectives that rangers can choose to take on. They're just a card that you can include in your deck during deck building. And these cards are usually kind of the card is directing you to try to do something in the game. And so usually they're not as good as just running a card that does a cool thing and, is done. So they're not quite as good as that, but you track your progress towards accomplishing this objective. And once you have accomplished it, you unlock a more powerful card that gets permanently added to your deck. So it's basically like a slightly worse card that gets upgraded into a better than average card as you play through the game. And there's a unique one for each background, as Darren said in the question. And they do all sorts of fun little things, from cataloging, having to go around and catalog different creatures throughout the beings throughout the valley, to having to go and like a Johnny Appleseed style quest to go and plant special plants around the valley. So there's these different the objectives are all going to be things that usually require you the kinds of things you can be expecting to do are a lot of the things you'll already be doing, but we've tried to design it in such a way that we want you to have to make slightly hard decisions during gameplay. You won't just you're not just checking these boxes as you play, or if you are, it's going to happen a little slower. It's going to require you to kind of stretch yourself a little bit past how you're normally playing to accomplish these different things. And each player might include one of these, and so it's very unique to a single player. And so it does create a little bit of that dynamic where one player's like, oh, but if we go this other route, we can accomplish my personal objective. And but yes, so these are one of the cool new things to look forward to in Stewards of the Valley. When we have Davi on, he can talk a little bit more in detail about how these work, and maybe we can share images of a couple of them.
Yeah, and the plan is going forward, for every new background we create, we'll have a personal objective, and who knows, maybe we'll do them for specialization, for specialties as well. That might be a thing down the road. That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Thanks, Darren. Next questions come from Jürgen. A question regarding the packaging material. I noticed that bubble wrap was used for protecting the game within the delivery box. Is bubble wrap environmentally friendly? If not, why are other forms such as stiff paper not used? Mine was not wrapped in bubble wrap.
Yeah,
exactly.
Mine wasn't either.
Nope, and most people's aren't. I think this is a good question to ask, because Jürgen doesn't specify. Maybe you could mention it if you're on Discord, or if you're on YouTube, or wherever you listen to this. Give a comment of where you actually got the game. We don't have control over what our various partners do with shipping the game out. We've obviously requested that they use environmentally friendly materials, recyclable materials like paper, or those compostable, packing peanuts, or there's a bajillion options. But the answer to the question, like, no, bubble wrap's not. It's bad. It's bad.
It's really fun.
Yeah, it can be. But and I've heard this from like at least one other person. So obviously this is something that some people, by some method, if you're getting it like from an online retailer in Europe, maybe they might send it wrapped in bubble wrap. Like I can't tell Zatu to not use bubble wrap if they're using bubble wrap to ship stuff. Like that's just their thing. I can't say no. I think for most of our fulfillment centers, however, that the game did come buffered by paper or some kind of compostable thing. I know that Covenant uses environmentally friendly materials when they pack the game, when they send stuff out for U.S. retail. So it really just depends who you got the game from. We request that they use good materials. And with our fulfillment centers, we can mostly keep that in check. But once the game gets out into other people's hands who are selling it, like we can't enforce anything. So,
yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer. But it's still better than nothing. To have the game be environmentally sustainably made and be recyclable and all that, have no plastic in it. So there's still net less plastic in the end.
Cool. All right. Next questions come from D-Chads. What regional dialects, for example, y'all, soda versus pop, etc., have survived through to Earthborne Rangers from current times? also, what regional dishes?
I love this question. Yeah.
It's
great.
Well, I don't know if soda or pop as a general concept made it out to the Rangers. So,
do they still say Rizz?
Do we say Rizz? What is Rizz?
It's like
it's what the young kids.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know.
I think it stands for charisma.
Yeah.
If you're charismatic, you got Rizz.
Yeah. Is that what that is?
I never made the connection.
I'm a 40-year-old man, so I could be way off. I don't
No,
know.
you're absolutely right, and I never connected that to the word. That's great. You got Rizz. You can be a Rizz lord if you're really like a smooth dude.
God,
Rizz has not made it out to EBR. If you're curious,
I doubt it.
It's the only one that has, I think.
I think we talked about language a little bit. Like, so I think one thing that I've tried to do with the writing, with the tone of the both in editing and writing myself, try to keep the dialogue as free of modern conventions as possible. So it has a little bit more of like a classic literature vibe to it. And anytime there's been any kind of like slang or anything, I think most of the time it's Sam writing like, damn it, or, I'll be damned, I think is something that he writes in there. And I've always changed that to I'll be planted. Like saying like, I'll be buried in the ground under my tree at Ancestors Grove, but mostly I've tried to keep all that out because I want it to feel as timeless as possible. So we're not really, apart from, like I'll be planted. We haven't invented like any new slang or anything, but as the opportunities arise, we'll totally do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Slang. Like, did you have an idea about like, oh yeah, the last thing I'll say about language is like, I see this, if you guys you're familiar with the Jack Ryan films, the Alec Baldwin, Harrison Ford, Tom Clancy movies, where they always do that thing where they have the character speaking a foreign language, and then they zoom in on a thing, and then when they zoom in, they switch from speaking in their foreign language to speaking in English, and they zoom back out.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just telling the audience like they're still speaking Russian. Like, just use your imagination.
Yeah.
That's how I see the dialogue in Earthborne Rangers, like they're not speaking English like we speak it. Like their language has evolved. Like, if you go back 2,500 years and you speak to someone who's like speaking English, like modern English really wasn't like at least published until like Shakespeare, right? Like that's kind of where modern English is thought to begin as far as the written word goes. So who knows how it was spoken, 1,000 years prior to that. You could probably get by mostly, but it would be wildly different from what we speak today. So imagine a similar thing 2,500 years in the future. Their language has changed. They have totally different context for everything. They've gone through totally different experiences than we have. I've always kind of like had this idea of it being this melange of like all the languages that currently exist in the Midwest. So it just adopts things. So maybe primarily like Spanish and English, but then there's other stuff thrown in there as well. So nothing. That the answer is nothing has survived. Who knows? Maybe they use some word that we have for slang as some other thing.
The English as a whole didn't make it, but Rizz made it. So there you go.
That's right. Did you have an idea for any local dishes, Evan?
No. I thought it was a great question because
hot dish.
I was thinking about Stephen King's Dark Tower series and how there are locations that are like far in the future in that series, and I don't think King made much effort changing his like main kind of manner of speaking, like New England kind of. And that was kind of funny and charming because he just writes what he knows. He's almost every main character is an author and stuff. So it just got me thinking about it. But in terms of dishes, I don't know. Hopefully things are spicy in the future because there isn't a lot of spice in our neck of the woods. So
true. Well, didn't you say the valley is like in Colorado?
Yeah.
So what's like
some spice?
What's a regional Coloradan dish? I have no idea.
So that's a good question. What is the most iconic thing from Colorado? My family lives out there, but
mountains. That's it.
Yeah, well, it's in Colorado, but the people who are like the people of the valley, they effectively come from Minnesota.
Oh yeah,
that's the story. Like they emerged from they emerged from our ecology. In my mind, it's always been like these have effectively been like Midwesterners, so like Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and then wandered around for hundreds of years helping people. Maybe like just good food willed out, so it's mostly like Mexican food.
Yeah. Well, I just looked up
great.
I was just looking up what food is Colorado known for, and green chili.
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
Rock.
All right.
Also, Denver style pizza. Whatever that is.
That's like
Rocky Mountain oysters. That is it. It's on the list.
There you go.
Okay. Good question. D-Cheds. Okay. Yeah. Whatever. Next question comes from Rusty Lantern. That's a new writer, new questioner. What aspect of the game is attributed to the Sadler brothers, and what significant modifications were made by the EBR team? That is something I wondered about. Thank you, Rusty Lantern.
Yeah. So I had this thought, like it'd be cool to either be cool or terrible to get Adam and Brady on and just say like, hey, take me through what you remember. I think that could be a fun thing to do. So we'll maybe I'll ask them if they'd like to do it. But yeah, I think the thing that really is like hung around, I think the most from their design is the test mechanic. That's been pretty much the same from the beginning.
I think the aspects were there too, right?
Yeah, sort of. In a way. So here, let me. I thought it'd be kind of fun to share because we still have all of their old prototype stuff in our folders. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to share that here on the screen. Let me try to do that. Nope, not that. Screen. All right, you guys see that?
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
Slowly.
Here it comes.
We got the dots. The dots are working.
Oh, yep, I see that.
Yeah. No dead air.
There we go.
There we go.
Ah. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
So for those of you, those of you listening on Spotify or wherever, I believe it is in a Google Slides.
Yes. Everything was
presentation slideshow. Yeah.
Everything was saved in Google Slides, which they love for the speed at which you can iterate and then put in a tabletop simulator. If you want to print it, it's a gigantic pain in the butt. So yeah, this is the original challenge deck. This is what it looked like.
That's cool.
So it's exactly the same.
I'm sad that those skulls didn't stay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it didn't change very much. So we had they had 4 attributes. So just the same system we have now. They had different names. They were, more, traditional kind of adventure game stuff like strength and wit, agility, I think. Intellect, maybe, I think, was focus. But the colors were all there from the beginning. So if people wonder like where we got the colors for the challenge deck or the aspects, or like, did you take those from Uno? We did not. They started off in the original prototype.
Fun fact, the Sadlers use those 4 colors in like every one of their prototypes I think I've ever worked with them on. They just love those, like, primary colors plus green. Like, yep.
Don't really think too hard. Yeah, just go. So I mean, you'll see we had the 3 challenge icons. We had the same, and then the way these worked differently was if you didn't spot your matching attribute on the card, then there was a 0. It was just no effect. And I changed the design so that there was a 0, so that there was always a number. So you didn't have to like go through that extra mental step of like, is my thing missing? And as a 0. But the design's the same, exactly the same. And then wherever you see this recycle symbol, then you reshuffle the deck. I think let's see here. It looks like the original deck that had no -2s. So at some point we said it's too easy. Let's put some -2s in there.
Nice. So that was there. And then on the various things, so these were like encounter cards from the original prototype as well. So you notice we got this Spindle Scuttler here with placeholder artwork. This is what old Bloody Clicker is. You had a basic energy that you could contribute towards any test. So they had something similar to like the common tests. You had like a fight test, you had like an investigate test, and these are all linked to your to the matching energy. And you could always do those things wherever you saw the matching icons here. And then they also had these little approach icons. I forget when the approach plus aspect was introduced, if that was at the very beginning or shortly thereafter. But I want to say that was Brady's idea to have this, base of your energy, and then you can modify it with icons. It worked
more similarly to Arkham Horror, to Alfred Hitchcock, little Cully guy, where it wasn't you weren't trying to match a number. You were doing math. So like when you were doing your effort, you had to put an effort and then look at the difference between your effort and the modifier to see if you succeeded or not. So I think that's why that was just +1s and -1s in the original challenge deck, because it was a little more difficult to complete challenges. But yeah, this is basically what it looked like. So we had the challenge effect down here. They had strain, and you're either causing things stress or damage, both kind of negative things. And if you stressed them out enough or damaged them enough, then they'd clear. The per ranger idea was present here as well. So this is 5 per player. Most things didn't have tests on them. Mostly it was just your standard ways of interacting. But yeah, so they're really responsible for taking my direction. As a big garbage truck. Taking my direction for the basics of resolution, where I was like, I'd like something similar to the way that revealing cards in Gloomhaven works, because I liked that process. And then I also wanted to do, Arkham Horror, the board game, Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror, the card game style. Icon does a thing, and they took that and then ran with it. So the basic mechanism for how you interact with the game was theirs and has been there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Everything outside of that has changed pretty significantly. The game, I've talked about this a few times, but the game originally was more about like scavenging stuff and trying to get like drawing cards from locations and putting them in your hand and then discarding them to do things. The resource system was totally different. You used to have to, instead of spending energy, you just needed to spot it to play a card. So you'd only spend your energy on these tests, and then you'd recover a little bit of it every turn, every round. But then when you played cards, you didn't spend any energy. You just had to have it in your pool to play. And that was kind of an interesting concept. But ultimately, when we overhauled the resource system and started to think about how to do things differently, like it just felt better to spend the energy instead of spotting it. It felt more meaningful, more impactful. So this is all the Sadler stuff. They did a bunch of work at the beginning, and then we changed a lot of it. And then the rest of it is, well, I did a redesign at one point, and that's like really what you experience as the round structure. That's my design. And then Fisher came in, and then what you experience as traveling around the valley, going from place to place, that whole arc, and the campaign design, that's all Fisher.
And I will say, so Brady and Adam did that early stuff. Brady also kind of jumped back in and helped out with a bunch, kind of after Andrew had kind of done the redesign to the main round structure. I'd done the redesign to all the campaign stuff, designed all the terrain sets and everything with Brooks. Brady came in and helped out fill out the Ranger card pool after kind of like the final what as Rangers came to be. So a bunch of those Ranger cards Brady helped and collaborated with. Like a bunch of those kind of concepts are his.
Yeah, that's more development. I think that is more development. Yeah, that's less design.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think we've shared it before, but the classic moment of desperation, that is a Brady Sadler design.
Yep.
A lot of really good. I think a lot of the best cards in the Ranger set are based on his designs. did a lot of iterative work there, and just banged it out oftentimes in the 11th hour. But I think a lot of those designs are still more or less intact in the final game.
That's really cool to see. That was a great question from Rusty Lantern. All right. Next question comes from Paul. Fisher referred to other narrative card games as competitors when he answered my question the other week. But from an outsider's perspective, it doesn't feel like people choose X over Y in this game space. Do you view other games in the space as competitors? Is this true, Fisher?
I mean, I'm sure it's true. I use the word competitor, but I'm kind of bad at synonyms in the moment. My brain is not great at that. But I mean, sure, in a traditional sense, like we're competing with them. But I think the board game industry especially is very the rising tide raises all boats, right? Like, so they're really not, right? Like, we love Arkham and all the other kind of games in our space, and like, honestly, like, the more of these games that exist, the more it kind of carves out a niche and builds an audience who's interested in these kind of games, and the more variety there is. So like, even though like I would say my answer to you is no, we don't consider them competitors, right? Like, they are, we're friends with a lot of these people. So like, and honestly, their success is usually our success as well. It's not like people are sitting there and like, I can only have one cooperative card game. Get out of here, Arkham or whatever. So I see the success of other people, especially in our kind of segment of the industry, as beneficial to us.
Yeah, totally. Like, and I think even, we would, like, when we were at FFG doing product development, we'd look at, like, we're doing another cooperative card game. All right, how do we not compete with ourselves? I think is part of the discussion, and I think that's part of it. Where you, I agree that you'll find your audience if your game is good and I think you're true to your vision. You'll find your audience, and you're not really competing with anybody, but yourself. So, but I will say though, if you were looking to compete with Arkham or Lord of the Rings or Marvel Champions or whatever, like, you would probably have a more similar game. That's why I feel like in the competitive CCG space, oftentimes, unless you're like one of those niche competitive CCGs, where you have your very specific audience that you're playing to, and it what you're doing just does not matter to like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or whatever. But I do think, like, I would say like a game like Flesh and Blood does compete directly with Magic. I feel like it is trying to do, like, even though mechanically, obviously, they're very, very different. I think it's trying to Flesh and Blood. I think is they may have even stated this, but I feel like they are going after that player. They want that player who wants a like really tight competitive game. Who wants that head-to-head competition to be as best as it can possibly be and offer the best possible experience. And in that way, I do think those games do compete a bit.
Yeah, I definitely think you have a point there. Those kind of lifestyle competitive games, like, a lot of the players don't have room for multiple in their lives just because you only have so many days you can go to a tournament, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I do agree that those compete more. Like, luckily, in the cooperative space, we have a little less of that because, like, you can play a Rangers campaign and then go play an Arkham campaign and then go play a Lord of the Rings campaign and then come back to Rangers for the expansion, right? You have room in your life for all of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Nice. Thanks for the question, Paul. Next question comes from Ryan. You've discussed expanding the game with new locations, path cards, and ranger cards, along with a new mechanism or two. What about expanding the challenge deck? Perhaps a challenge card that triggers 2 or 3 of the symbols instead of just one, or a challenge card that gives plus or minus. Confusing wording here. I guess plus or minus that is conditional on something else. For example, +0 fitness by default, but +1 if a predator is in play. Okay, gotcha. All right.
We've definitely talked about customizing the challenge deck. We have not customized it yet, but that is like obviously it being a deck gives us design space for you to kind of like control it in interesting ways, stack it in interesting ways, and also customize it in interesting ways. And so that's definitely space we, I think, would like to explore. I'll say that.
Yeah, totally.
All right, that's the answer. All right, next question comes from Stilly.
Yeah, sorry, didn't have much more to say to that. Like, yep.
That's good.
Like,
That's
all
good.
all options always on the table, I think, is usually the way we look at that.
Right. It's good because we're running a little long. Good short answer. Okay. Our next question comes from Stilly. What was it like getting into the headspace of designing with the delightful rule in the background? Did it remind us what the delightful rule was again?
So the delightful rule is basically that.
Oh yeah.
Whenever there is something that's uncertain or like two things are tied and you need to choose one, that the rangers get to choose, that you as the players get to choose what the outcome is. Like what order do things resolve in? If there's an ambiguity, you decide. This is a kind of fairly direct response to the Grim rule from Arkham Horror, the card game, which states that when something like that occurs, you do whatever would be worst for you, which is very on theme for Arkham, but the delightful rule is a bit more on theme for Rangers.
All right, so did it have an impact on the design process? The Grim rule seems kind of crucial to a game like Arkham. Did you like it in that game, or did you sort of always want to have a delightful rule instead? Did others on the design team take convincing regarding the delightful rule?
Well, so the delightful rule is something that's just kind of been in the background, and I gave a name to when we posted our FAQ. So it wasn't as a named thing, was not there in the background, the entire time. Obviously, it is the Grim rule is essential for a game like Arkham or like Kingdom Death Monster that is like. The whole game is about punishing you. The game is trying to punish you, and if the game isn't punishing you, then it's not doing its job. So, like, if you could just, as someone who has done this exactly, like, sometimes you don't know what to do, and you know that the Grim rule is telling you got to do what is worse. But sometimes it's like, man, come on, let's just give ourselves a break. And in my experience, I feel like I do that more often than not. So it's like giving people permission to have fun with the game they're playing, especially in a game that's not trying to beat the crap out of you, where it's more about having an enjoyable experience and telling an interesting story. I think it's pretty important. But I feel like the question of like, did it take convincing to try to convince designers and developers to not fall back into our same old patterns? I would say, yeah, definitely. Like from the beginning, this has always been the philosophy behind it, whether or not it had a name. It definitely took some work and convincing. But I don't think it took any convincing with you, Fisher. I think you were pretty much on board from the beginning. Like I guess I'd already gone through all the hard work. Like, yep, this sounds good. Let's just do it.
Yeah, I came from. I've done a lot of work on our tabletop role playing games and I'm a pretty firm believer in the philosophy in most TTRPGs that the GM is kind of working with the players to tell a story, not that the GM is their enemy. And so like it's basically just taking a more tabletop role-playing game approach to the relationship of the designer and the player. So I was totally on board. You do have to make some decisions a little differently, right? Like what options you offer up to the player and how those are balanced against each other changes a bit when people can choose the best option versus having to choose the worst option. But it's not that bad. Like honestly, it's it's only resolving when there's uncertainty. And so like ideally we don't have many of those points. So it doesn't change the game that dramatically. And honestly, it smooths out some like points of that might be more brutal if it didn't exist. So, yeah.
Delightful. All right, our final question comes from Chub Frog. And Andrew indicated in an interview that we can expect to hit the ground running in terms of encounter difficulty in Legacy of the Ancestors, in contrast to Lure of the Valley's gentler introduction. Should we expect challenges equivalent to Lure of the Valley's Swamp to be the baseline of difficulty in Legacy?
Not quite. The swamp is pretty rough. Things are definitely harder in Legacy, but I would say that like ideally, and now I think the mountains show that like maybe our difficulty tuning doesn't always exactly hit the mark, but like, ideally, I think, the core game goes up in difficulty like this, right? And like, I mean, it looks more like this. And then the expansion dips down a little and then kind of keeps going, right? So you're going to be able to stumble into some stuff that's pretty hard pretty early on. There's a couple terrain types that are don't pull any punches. I'll put it that way. They aren't necessarily hard if you approach them right, but they don't pull any punches, and you can find them pretty early. But I wouldn't say don't expect to just be in the swamp all the time. There's one of the interesting things about the terrain system and navigating the valley is to have variety, and part of variety is that some things are easier. So don't expect it to just be swamp all the time. We still want you to have a good time.
Cool. And then second part of the question, in Lure of the Valley, exploration was wide open, while the order of story points was linear. I read that weird. Are you interested in exploring other campaign structures, such as a more player-driven, variable order to the story missions?
I think we need the right story for that. Like, I think that's where it comes down to is like, I would say yes, but the question on an academic level, I think is interesting. I would immediately ask myself, all right, what is that story? Because it's not really much of a story if you're not, I'm an English major. I've got lots of training in writing. And I'm an American. So I have a very ingrained sense of like what a story is in it, from a narrative perspective, if I'm actually telling a story, which means it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And those go in sequence. I think if we didn't have a core story at the middle, you just have effectively what is like an open world like roam mode, which is you could totally do with our game. You can just turn off. You could, if you want, you could just turn off the main missions and just go around and do all the side activities. And I think that's effectively what Chubb is suggesting there. And I think that's cool too, because then it's just your story, and I don't need to worry about writing that story. As the author, I can just say, here are the pieces, you go ahead and tell your own thing. And I think there's totally value to that. Wrapping that into a full campaign, though, where there's like big moments and like exciting things, like I think that'd be much more difficult to do. I wonder what that story is, I guess.
In the expansion, I think this is high level enough to not really be a spoiler, but you'll see us experiment with some ability to do things in variable orders or give a little more player-driven control. But to Andrew's point, it's not completely opening it up to you.
There's still acts.
Yeah. And I've worked on some, and I think that's not to say it's not possible to like take the story a little bit off rails and still have a traditional story as Andrew's describing. We did a little bit of this in some of the expansions to Descent 2nd Edition and our campaigns therein.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the tricky things is once you start letting people tackle whole acts in different orders, either they need to be completely compartmentalized or they need to have a decent amount of reactivity to each other, such that you're making a bunch of content that might not be seen by everybody because it's based on the order you play it in. And like you can already see in our campaign guide that we're bursting at the seams word count wise as far as like what we can fit into our game. And so like doing a bunch of wild variability that requires whole different sections of text, we just didn't have the room for it in our raw writing. Like I honestly think if we were going to dedicate words to more reactivity, I think we would do it to more smaller moments, like having individual characters you run into the world have unique text for each story mission that might be going on at a given moment when you run into them, things like that. And so it is. So yes, Chubb, it is possible to do, but I think if we're going to dedicate our time and resources and writing bandwidth places, we'd probably dedicate it elsewhere first.
Well, Chubb, I hope that Andrew answered your question for you. I also love
we're
that
like commodified that way.
Yeah.
I also like that both of you referred to them as Chubb. Well, I think what Chubb is asking here is
good old CF.
Chubb Frog. All right, thanks for all the great questions, everybody. As usual, let's move on to the Anders Indie Game Corner. Okay,
hey.
Anders played a lot of games over the past month. I had 2 weeks off of work, which actually ended up being like 2.5 weeks. So I was inclined to play a lot of games. I just had the passion. I wanted to try stuff out. I played. I'm not going to go into these that deep because there's a few. Elec Head. Did I talk about this on the show before? Have you guys ever played Elec Head?
No.
You and I have definitely talked about it before. I don't remember if it was on air though.
Elec Head is a great puzzle game. It's like a puzzle platformer made by one guy in Japan. Great little game. It was the second time I played through it. It's full of little weird secrets. The puzzles are so straightforward that they're hard sometimes. You know what I mean? Like they're so like you would not expect that it was that easy. You know, you might spend half an hour trying to figure out what to do. These little one-screen puzzles get from A to B, basically. So it's that kind of game. And some of the little concepts are extremely clever, I think, in the space of puzzle games, if you're into that, which I love puzzle games. Think like Inside or Limbo, that kind of environmental puzzle, I think is what they call that, right? So Elec Head's great. And then I played Cyber Shadow, which I had already played about half of, but I started over. It's a retro-looking game. It was published. It's the only game published by Yacht Club Games that is not
Yacht Club Games.
That is not a Shovel Knight game. So it's like their only other game.
Oh, was it pre-Shovel Knight?
No, it was after. So it's developed also developed by one guy. Music, everything, that kind of thing. And it's kind of like a Ninja Gaiden, a little bit like The Messenger. Cool. Oh God. Oh, I think Evan, you would love it. I think it's a perfect game.
I love the character design. It's cool.
It's really, really good. It's simple. It's just really tight. Every little element is just perfect. I loved Ninja Gaiden.
How's the jumping?
Jumping is great. I love the jumping. The slashing, the jumping, the way that new abilities are presented and unfold is perfectly paced. Some of the abilities are kind of unique, stuff I haven't seen before. Like you have this weird like rotating saw blade that kind of like hovers. It kind of has like a physics feel to it. So when you jump, you kind of like whiplash it or whip it forward in a way. So it's kind of always like bouncing in front of you or up or whatever. It's a great game. It's really, really hard at times. So if you're not into, going up against a wall over and over again, might not be for you. But it's cool. Like the bosses are designed in a way where once you figure out the pattern, you just have to focus and like follow through on the pattern, and it'll seem super easy if you just do it correct, rather than like got to have the dexterity to keep dodging enough and hitting the boss over and over again, which I'm not a big fan of that. And next, I didn't want to spend a lot of money, so these are games that I had in my backlog. I played this game Dandara, which you've probably seen around. Really unique Metroidvania. Check it out. I kind of quit halfway through, but whatever. It's still good. Finally played Journey. I never had a PlayStation when that first came out. Yeah. haven't played much of it, but there was one other person playing with me.
Yeah,
because a big concept in that game is that you will be playing with another live person.
Yep.
You can't really communicate other than with like little bong noises, bing bongs. I don't know how to explain it. It was such a I had heard about this component to the game forever, and I finally playing it. I was really shocked that how cool it felt to be kind of going through these, I guess, environmental puzzles also with another person. It's
really effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
I highly recommend next time you sit down to play it, just set aside like 3 to 4 hours and play it start to finish.
That's what it felt like. Yep. That's why I stopped. I was like, I got to go to bed. Next time I play this, it's going to be the whole game.
Yeah. It's really good. It's really affecting. I played it. My oldest son, he played it, and he really loved it too. He also played it start to finish. Like that's
nice.
The way to do it. It's very short.
Right. Like a couple hours.
Yeah, like 3 to 4, I would say.
It reminded me of like the first time I played Limbo. Like it just felt like, what is happening? Where am I? What is this world?
That's cool.
Yeah. So Journey, you guys check out Journey if you've never heard of it. I'm sure you all have. Finally, I got onto a roguelike Reddit page. It's like,
oh no.
And no, it's good. Everybody's posting their tier lists of their favorite roguelikes. So I posted mine, and it got like a ton of interaction. So one of the biggest blind spots the other Redditors said that I have is for the game Monster Train. So that's one that was in my backlog forever too, and I finally gave it a go, and it's just fun. It's just really fun. I like Monster Train. It's not quite as good as Slay the Spire, I do not think, but it's a little easier, a little more accessible maybe, but it's super fun. I like Monster Train.
Another card-based game?
It's very similar to Slay the Spire card roguelike, except there's like levels on a train, and there's like a placement mechanic, so you put your guy here, put your whatever. Fisher, have you played it?
I was always like, I'd just rather be playing Slay the Spire right now. So like, when my friends were into Monster Train, I like watched them play it a bit, and I was like, okay, I'll go boot up Slay the Spire, because I don't have enough time to play games that I'm not like burnt out on Slay the Spire, so I just went and played that. Yeah,
I think you should try it, because I had the same feeling too forever, and I finally just took all those strangers' advice, played Monster Train.
I'm excited about the last game on your list though, because that game is super unique. So,
Uno Flip.
No, I guess you haven't talked about that. Okay, no, this one.
Oh yeah. Okay, first I'll say I played Uno Flip at school with kids. Really fun. I hate Uno. I grew to hate Uno working with kids for 20 years, but Uno Flip is quite a nice twist, and it was very fun. And then I played Azul finally. That's a great simple game to play with your family, and that's a board game. And then finally, Mosalina. So it's as if the S and the N of Mona Lisa are flipped, 2 words. And it feels very indie, very like could have been made by a game jam. It's I think like $2.99 on the Steam store. But so it's you're this little character that has a little gun, and it's just very like line art looking. Very like
looks like it was made in paint. Yeah.
Yes, looks like it was made in paint. But like cooler, like it looks cool. It looks cool, I think. And you have this little gun, and the game is all about randomness, and they call it like an immersive sim, which I guess is what they call games like Thief, like games where you kind of have various solutions to your problems. Is that right?
Yeah.
But it's just very straightforward. You have like random 9 levels maybe, and random like 10 different weapons that cycle through, and you just keep trying these levels until you can complete get from point A to point B basically. And if you lose, you go to another random level, so you don't get to replay it immediately. And then every time you go back to a level, you have 4 different tools out of your toolkit that is also randomized. So as you play, you get to kind of know how to utilize each little thing. Like one weapon might be you shoot a frog out, and then the frog can jump, and you can stand on top of the frog, and the frog will jump you up to your finish line or whatever.
Classic ability.
Yeah. What's another one? You shoot out a little gravity box that when you jump into that box, it'll float you up. And it's just really chaotic. And at first I was thinking there seems to be no objective. Oh, another cool thing about the game is that it has this kind of quirky text that will pop up, and it'll say, like, some of the puzzles are not solvable. It's okay to just kill yourself. Like, move on to the next one. so you might not have the right tools to complete the task.
Oh, I see.
Like, oh man, I'm not gonna want to play this. I'll be, butting my head against the wall and think, oh, this is probably not solvable. Screw this shit.
That'd drive me nuts.
There's my swear for the day. But in the end, I just got hooked on it. I'm just sitting there like, let's see how many of these we can get. And usually that doesn't do it for me. Like, no clear objective. But I was like, this is so weird and wacky. Let's see how far I get. Anyway.
I was curious what you were going to say about it, because like this is one of those games that I love in concept, but I can't tell if I just love it because of the design aspect or if it's actually enjoyable to play.
Did you play?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, the different powers you can get combine in different interesting ways. And so like some of the fun is like, okay, I have these tools. Can I make this work? So it's like a randomly generated puzzle game in many ways. And like it's the drawn in paint thing extends to other aspects of the game where it's just janky enough that like it's kind of janky in a fun way where like, you do something and you're like, I don't know if I could do that again. And also like, I don't like, that's definitely not intended, right? It's all random, so none of it's intended. But like, you definitely have that feeling. You have a feeling of unique moments, which is very unusual for a puzzle game, because usually you play a puzzle game and you're like, every person who's played this has solved this puzzle, right? But like you feel like you have unique moments, which is neat.
It feels like a new Zelda game, like a dungeon or a temple or whatever they call them, shrine challenge, where there's multiple ways to get to the answer. I think it's worth spending $2 on, playing for a little bit, and then watching really good players on YouTube. That was fun for me because they can do some crazy stuff with those tools. I'd say I did maybe like 2 hours worth of fun for me. Anyway, there's my game corner. Out of all those, I think Uno Flip was the most fun. All right, moving on. Fisher.
Yeah, actually, your Uno Flip one reminded me of probably the game that got the most success over the holidays. Is this little game by Oink Games called Scout. It's a little card game, and it's shares a lot of DNA with like Trick Takers, also with like Rummy. So it's like, but it kind of mashes it up in an interesting, unique way, and that the cards can flip either way and have different values and stuff. And you're kind of playing this kind of trick-taking style game where you're trying to make sets, but your hand is in a fixed order. And so a lot of the game is trying to like organize your hand through the mechanics of the game and stuff. And it's just some of my relatives who have mostly only played 52 card deck games picked it up just great, but it feels novel, recommendation to Scout. It's a good one. Other than that, stuff I've been into lately, a lot of our holidays was showing off Wyatt to various family members and stuff, so I didn't get to play as many games. I was hoping to start Baldur's Gate, but I did not. But I did make a bunch of progress on Attack on Titan, which I said I was watching last time. I'm in the fourth and final season. This show is weirder than I thought it was. Every time I think I have the show figured out, the next season does something totally different. And the fourth season is probably the biggest to this note. The show practically changes genre in the fourth season. And I don't know, some of it's definitely story related. There's a very big reveal at the end of the third season, which just completely changes the show. But it also passed to a new animation studio, and I'm curious how much their choices change things as well. I'm still enjoying the show, but it doesn't have like one of the awesome things about Attack on Titan that I'm sure a lot of you have already seen it, but people who haven't seen it, you may have seen like they have this stuff called ODM gear where like they can shoot out these grappling hooks and they basically Spider-Man through the city. And the animations for them doing this are so rad. Like they are just like super kinetic, and like they'll do these big swooping like CG shots, and the CG in the background, you don't want to look at it too closely, but what's really cool is like they 2D animate the characters on like in front of the screen, like swooping through this environment, and their animations are just like dynamic and wild and so rad. And the new studio doesn't do them nearly as well as the studio that did the first 3 seasons, so I do miss some of that. But it, it almost makes me appreciate the old animation studio more. Like I went on YouTube and like watched recaps of all the scenes I'd already watched just because I was like, oh, that's so cool.
I do that so much.
Oh yeah. Did you ever watch AMVs back in the day? Out of curiosity,
AMVs?
Anime music videos.
I've probably like what do you mean, like that people have made to like Linkin Park or something?
Exactly. Yeah,
I think I've seen a few. Yeah.
It's always
it's always Linkin Park.
Always
like,
Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, every person Rurouni Kenshin ever killed to Linkin Park. But yeah, I haven't watched an AMV in 20 years, but I watched an AMV of ODM scenes from Attack on Titan. They were just so cool.
Nice.
The other thing I am into right now is my regular miniatures group. We just started a Necromunda campaign. Luckily, I have a gang I painted up from our campaign we did a campaign a year or 2 ago, and so I'm just using the same guys because they didn't get enough table time then. But Necromunda's like a skirmish-based campaign game where, like injuries to your guys carry over game to game and stuff.
Cool.
And so
it's super cool.
Yeah, we got like 9 people in it, so it's
Wow.
I'm excited for
Nice.
this one.
Nice. That's a good amount, because that way when people inevitably drop out, you'll still probably have a decent core to play with.
Yeah, you still have some people around.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, my first game was a rousing success, so I've started the snowball rolling. We'll see if I can keep it.
Nice.
Cool.
But that's what I've been up to.
Nice. How about you, Evan?
Yeah,
a little reading.
Well, yeah, I was going to talk about reading, but this show's running long, so. And okay. I thought of something while we were all talking about that I would much rather talk about. It's more interesting for me to talk about than like give a book report on 2 books I've read. So
I read one of those.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Which
we
one?
can talk about it later.
Oh, okay.
The Teachings of Don Juan.
Andres wants a book report.
Yeah. Okay, so I just had a fun experience last week that really made me think I was a ranger in the valley. And it's probably something that people who have more stuff going on in their life encounter all the time. But anyways, I went outside last week to like do a little bit of shoveling. We had a meager amount of snow, and I was gonna blast it out quick in the morning. But I saw my neighbor was out there too. But he had dropped his shovel and he was running around calling for his dogs. And I guess he had accidentally left the gate open while he was shoveling, and his 2 dogs got out and were somewhere in the neighborhood. And to make matters worse, when I talked to him about it, he said that they had just given the dogs a bath, so neither of them had their leashes, and they were just gone. And immediately I was like, I'm gonna go find them. And I just went. He went one way, I went the other, and I started looking all over. I just felt like I got really in tune with the environment. I was listening for everything. I found the dog's tracks because it had just snowed, luckily. And I was looking for the tracks of a dog that was unleashed, so in yards and things like that. And I was following it, and it was really cute seeing like where the tracks would lead. Like, oh, the dog was interested in some garbage in an alleyway. And then all of a sudden he went this way. And I was trying to imagine, what led him to those moments. And then I heard a dog barking, and I'm like, oh, here we go. I found him. And it turned out it was another neighbor's dog who had just interacted with the dog I was looking for. And he pointed me in the direction. So I felt like I was doing all these tests, like a connection test.
That's awesome.
An awareness test. And then I ran into another couple who had been walking their dog, and they were worried that they didn't know this dog that they saw off a leash without a collar. The dog is a deer. She's so nice, but they had their own dog, and they were worried about, this unleashed dog interacting. Anyways, so I followed and followed, and I felt like, the mission was weighing heavily on me because there's some busy streets, and the tracks were leading me towards one of these busy streets, and I just would have felt awful to find the dog had gotten hit by a car or something. Anyways, I found her like in an alleyway a block away from a busy street, and then I felt like I was doing like a connection test, like to get her to come to me and not be scared of me, because and stick around, because I couldn't grab her by the leash or anything. So I had to figure out a way to get her back like 4 blocks back to her home. And I was able to, I just hung out with her for a little bit, like you're on the sidewalk, and like was petting her, and then I was like, well, I guess I just have to pick her up, and I was worried that she was going to freak out and get even more scared and like run farther away. Anyway, she let me pick her up, and then I felt how out of shape I was, because I was carrying this big dog all the way back.
I was gonna say, how big was she?
She's how do I just, like the size of a golden retriever, I guess, maybe a little bit smaller.
That's a pretty big dog.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big dog.
Without a collar, and just worrying about keeping your hands on her, and making sure she doesn't get away or alarmed by anything. So, anyways, I got her back. It was cool. It was
awesome.
Like, man, I wish I could just do this stuff all the time. It was really fun.
What was your reward? What'd you get?
I just felt like the hero of the neighborhood for the day. So
the moment.
Oh no, I was rewarded because they came by later. They had family in town, and their daughter had just made cookies, so I got some cookies. That was awesome.
There you go.
Let's go.
Yeah,
nice. That's awesome.
That's
great.
Awesome. Well, dog catcher is a you could be a dog catcher.
Yeah, but usually they're portrayed as the bad guy,
evil,
and the villains.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that. So
you got a big net next time.
I don't really feel like Aragorn every time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool.
But I mean, beyond that, I've been dealing with getting sick from daycare and various things. So I have not had much going on beyond that. So, anyways, that's what I've been into. Yeah.
That's all you need. Thanks, Evan. And then Andrew.
Yeah, so
take us out.
I'll take us out. So my holidays, I guess, kind of became the holiday discussion a little bit. It was pretty fun because I've been down here in Costa Rica and experiencing a different culture. And we've been fortunate enough to have friends down here to meet people, so we got invited to holiday things. Including a Christmas Eve celebration and then a New Year's Eve celebration.
Cool.
And that was really awesome. I since I could probably talk a lot about it. But in the interest of time, I'll just say that it was really great to experience Christmas and New Year's with, again, such amazing, generous people, but also people who are have really cool and meaningful traditions, really surrounding the family, and just some really lovely things. I think the thing that I'll share that I think was the best was on Christmas Eve, which was we went to our friend, the same people we went out with this past weekend, Andres and Estefania. Their extended family at Andres's parents' house. We've been there before for another family gathering, and essentially the entire extended family is there. Everyone's just hanging out, singing songs. We did like a gift exchange. The gifts really consist of fruit and chocolate for the most part, so it's kind of like Halloween, except at Christmas time. And with some of the kids got like toys and things, but all the adults just exchanged food, which is really awesome. But then at the end of the night, this is on Christmas Eve, like at midnight, kind of like New Year's Eve, everyone says Merry Christmas to each other, and you effectively like count down to Christmas. And it was the first time I think I had fun, like, oh my gosh, it's Christmas, like at midnight. Probably since I was a child. But then you go around person by person everyone in the gathering. So it's like, 30 to 40 people. Hug them and say Merry Christmas. And that was so nice. It was so
different
lovely.
than Minnesotan culture, I think.
Yeah.
Midwestern culture.
Yeah.
And really no alcohol, like both New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. Like a family gathering at that scale, in my experience, like there better be alcohol involved, because it's hard to get through otherwise. But none. Everyone having a great time. So yeah, it was super cool. It was really nice. And it was a really awesome experience that I will cherish forever.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I played a lot of Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
A lot of Baldur's Gate 3. I've been putting in my time in the evening, like around 7 o'clock. I'll fire it up and then play to like 10 or 11. On the weekends, I've been playing in the morning before everyone gets up, and in the evening. So putting in some real time. I think last week I mentioned to you, Fisher, like I'm about ready to be free of this game. Like I really enjoy it, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
What act are you in right now?
I believe I'm in the third act. I'm in I'm in the
Baldur's
titular
Gate.
Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, you're in the third act.
Yep. And it's been awesome. Like I think it's been really cool. Really been enjoying the story. It still has not like let me down at all. The combat is still super fun. Like if it wasn't such an investment to start over again, like I think I think it'd be cool just to like try different characters. I wish I could just kind of like boot into like the middle of a campaign and try different stuff out. I guess I could. You can always like change your class, I think, midway. So I could like make a save and then just like change my class and goof around with some of the different abilities. But that game's great. I put a ton of time into it. I'm not going to have very much time to play at all in the coming weeks. So I don't know. Maybe like I'll finish it in March sometime. Maybe we'll see.
You can finish it when I start playing Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, when it comes.
There you go.
At the end of February.
Yeah, maybe after the Gamefound, I'll take. We're already planning on our like spring break thing, so that's going to be supposed to be my post Gamefound plans. But maybe I can carve out some time to finish that game off.
I know how you feel about wanting to replay it. I definitely am. If I ever finish it, I'm going to replay it as a different character. But I don't know. I really love that high Rizz score. Like I don't think I could play without a character that has lower than 20 charisma.
Good
I just love, all those interactions that you can crush with high charisma is just so satisfying.
Yeah. I like getting all the knowledge.
That's good too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the few games where I'm like, I'm gonna spend like this, like every 4 level or 3 level thing of getting this, the ability to put more points into skills, and I'm going to put it purely into the lore because it's really satisfying to get those little extra bits of narrative from the GM. It's fun. Good game. So I hear.
Good game.
I agree with it.
Word on the street.
That's right.
Well, that does it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thank you, guys. It's great to see you all. I was gonna send us your questions. You don't need reminding. And is there going to be something new coming up? Do you want to say that now? Or
I think we could say that. Keep an eye on the YouTube channel in particular. We'll have more stuff. We're going to have like a new trailer for the Gamefound that will launch here at some point in the near future. I think I'm also going to do a video where I'm like effectively just narrating the Gamefound page and talking about what everything is so that everyone knows what is up. So it'll kind of be like a video version of an FAQ plus the explanation of everything on the page. We were talking about doing bonus episodes of this podcast. We'll do more interviews and stuff. Like the last campaign, the goal will be to try to share something cool every day of the campaign. And except for Sundays, I think we'll take Sundays off again like we did last time. So we have one day off, but then we'll do video content to fill in some of that. And podcast stuff. So yeah, lots of stuff in the coming weeks.
Amazing. Cool. Well, I've gone into hacker mode, as you can see if you're watching. I got some hacking to do.
He's in.
Good luck.
I'm in the mainframe. All right, guys. We'll catch you later. See you next time.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.